The British monarchy operates on the principle of biological succession. King Charles III has prioritized the machinery of the state over familial ties. The mandate is clear. The law must proceed without royal intervention. This is not a private dispute settled within the walls of Sandringham. It is a formal, constitutional severance. When legal proceedings involve senior members of the House of Windsor, silence from the palace is not an oversight. It is a deliberate legal vacuum. The Crown recognizes no kin, only subjects. The precedent for this separation was established in 1649 during the trial of Charles I. That era confirmed a fundamental constitutional truth. The person of the king is distinct from the office of the king. The office remains beholden to the law. Charles III is applying this doctrine to the modern era. By declining to intervene in the investigations surrounding the Duke of York, the sovereign acknowledges that the institution's survival depends on its submission to the judiciary. The stakes are reflected in recent data. Support for the Republican movement has increased by 40%, shifting the national conversation from popularity to legal legitimacy. Is a hereditary system still compatible with modern transparency? While official statements celebrate new royal births to maintain public morale, the administrative reality is far more clinical. The king is distancing the monarchy from individual scandals to protect the integrity of the line of succession. To preserve the 1,000-year-old institution, the sovereign must remain indifferent to the fate of the brother. The Crown often acts through silence rather than decree. Accessibility is the ultimate currency of the British monarchy, and it is systematically being withheld. The Royal Lodge serves as the primary case study for this transition. Once a hub of high-level networking, the residence has become a site of total administrative isolation. In London, prestige is managed through the ritual of the carriage procession at Royal Ascot. Excluding the York family from this ceremony is not a scheduling oversight. It is a calculated social excommunication. Visibility is a sovereign gift. For those whose presence invites legal or moral scrutiny, that gift is permanently revoked. Sarah Ferguson occupies a unique position in this vacuum. Her charitable patronages have quietly dissolved, marking a final retreat from any official capacity within the firm. This quarantine inevitably affects Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. They are forced to navigate professional lives without the institutional protection usually afforded to the grandchildren of a sovereign. The process is now moving beyond social exclusion into the realm of legislative mechanics. The Titles Deprivation Amendment Act represents a potential shift in constitutional law. If passed, it provides the formal instruments required to strip hereditary honors from those who compromise the state. These are not emotional choices. They are structural necessities. The king is ensuring that the survival of the House of Windsor remains independent of the conduct of his relatives. The institution is purging its vulnerabilities to secure its future. The transition from social exclusion to legal accountability is now complete. On February 19th, 2026, the isolation of the Duke of York shifted from the symbolic to the physical. His 11-hour detention for questioning marks the first instance of a direct descendant of a sovereign being processed through standard police channels. This is no longer a crisis of reputation. It is a formal investigation into misconduct in public office. The allegations center on the unauthorized dissemination of confidentiated strategic distributing material constrained on the Anaphakesten in Southeast Asia. When a royal envoy operates without Foreign Office oversight, the distinction between diplomatic service and personal agenda disappears. Royal secrets are the property of the state, not family assets. This inquiry scrutinizes the Duke's historical association with figures like Peter Mandelson. This network facilitated a shadow diplomacy that functioned outside parliamentary accountability. It was a system predicated on the assumption of total immunity. Forensic accounting has since identified the specific cost of this period. A £620,000 expense report is more than a budgetary error. It is a document of entitlement that the Treasury refuses to overlook. These figures highlight the tension between inherited status and the oversight required of public servants. Misconduct in public office is an indictable offense. To the judiciary, a royal title is a historical footnote. The Duke's actions as an official are the only relevant evidence. The king has confirmed his neutrality. The law will now treat the brother of the sovereign as a common subject. The theater of inquiry has shifted across the Atlantic. The United States Department of Justice is currently conducting a digital autopsy of the Epstein estate, a process entirely indifferent to the protocols of the British court. This repository contains millions of unredacted pages. These documents function as a statutory bypass, rendering royal privilege obsolete in the face of federal discovery. The 2019 Newsnight interview has undergone a significant legal reclassification. It is no longer viewed as a lapse in public relations, but as formal testimony subjected to forensic timeline mapping. What was once a clumsy defense is now being scrutinized for potential charges of perjury and obstruction of justice. This archive exposes a decade of systemic proximity rather than isolated incidents. The evidence reaches beyond the Duke himself. Internal correspondence from 2009 documents a luncheon in Miami. It places Sarah Ferguson and Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie within a social orbit that the palace has spent years attempting to erase. This was a documented integration into a network now under global scrutiny. For the York sisters, the burden of their lineage has been compounded by a biological inheritance of scandal. In the era of unredacted data, a royal pedigree provides no immunity. The digital trail is a permanent record that the machinery of the state can no longer ignore. Truth has ceased to be a matter of palace narrative. It is now a matter of verifiable data. The York family unit has fractured into two distinct survival strategies. This is no longer a domestic dispute, but a divergence of constitutional interests. History demonstrates that when a dynasty faces a crisis of legitimacy, junior members must choose between blood and the institution. Princess Eugenie has opted for the institution. Her recent pregnancy was not shared with the Duke of York in person. He received the information through a secondary administrative briefing. This is the language of total estrangement. By utilizing Zara Tindall as a strategic intermediary to the king, Eugenie has removed her father from the chain of communication. To secure her children's standing, she has treated her father's proximity as an institutional risk. Princess Beatrice represents the antithesis. Her decision to appear publicly with the Duke within the Windsor estate is a strategically perilous display of loyalty. It is a refusal to accept the formal isolation mandated by the palace. This schism reflects the cold reality of the British monarchy. One daughter operates as a subject of the state. The other remains a daughter of the Duke. In the brutal arithmetic of royal survival, there is no room for both paths. One sister aligns with the future of the crown, while the other remains tethered to an era of revoked immunity. The king is observing this divergence. He understands that the survival of the House of Windsor depends on these internal calculations. The palace issued a brief administrative notice regarding Princess Eugenie's third pregnancy. This was not a celebration of family, but a calibrated deployment of the sovereign's protection. Acting as a diplomatic intermediary, Zara Tindall facilitated a direct line between Eugenie and the king. This strategic bypass ensured the Duke of York was excluded from the official communication chain. The result is total institutional decoupling. By securing a formal proclamation, Eugenie has effectively insulated her children from the administrative fallout surrounding the York name. While the Duke faces questioning for misconduct in public office, his daughter's descendants are being secured within the firm. The Crown operates on two parallel tracks: legal accountability and dynastic continuity. The clinical reality of the line of succession remains unchanged. This child will enter at the 14th position, shifting the hierarchy without regard for the ongoing criminal inquiries. The expected delivery in the summer of 2026 coincides with the projected timeline of the judiciary's final findings. It is a calculated collision of personal life and state proceedings. The Crown prioritizes the stability of the next generation over the personal transgressions of the present. It is a process of survival through selective isolation. The institution moves forward by shedding its liabilities. It always has. Is Princess Eugenie's strategic distancing an act of family betrayal or a masterclass in constitutional survival? Share your analysis below and subscribe for continued documentary coverage of the House of Windsor.